So I'm grabbing my drawer. I'm going, damn thing won't open. And I pulled on it really hard, and it was stuck behind it. It was my trench coat. It was the fringe. So I took all the fringe, had it cut off, and I'm wearing it tonight.
How cool is that? Now, if you're not in Vegas, don't you wish you were here to see Don in that jacket and hat from the In My Dreams video?
A lot of history. You've got to remember, that's 40 years ago.
Yeah.
When I found it, I was like,
we got to keep our eyes on that jacket, man. We can't let that thing go ever.
It's going to have to end up at the Hard Rock or something.
Yeah, it'll have to be in a museum.
Yeah.
So someone wants to know if you remember playing the Iowa Jam with Metallica. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah, we played a couple shows with Metallica.
Okay, cool.
They kicked our butts. It's hard to play with Metallica. They're the biggest band in the world now. And I remember on Monsters, they were going on right before us. And I thought, it's kind of like, we're not heavy like them. So I told them, we had the same manager, Bernstein and Mish.
Yeah.
And I said, Cliff, can you put them on after us? I go, it's kind of hard to go on stage and sing In My Dreams.
Wait, Metallica came on before you?
Mm-hmm.
Holy smokes, those were early Metallica days.
They crushed us. They were right in the middle of recording the Black Album.
Yeah.
It took them 4 years with Mutt Lange. And I remember the bass player, Jason, came to my hotel room one night, and he said he wanted me to listen to a track, and he said, just give me your opinion as a producer. Do you think the bass is too low? And I said, honestly, I wouldn't know because I can't hear any bass.
That's funny.
I didn't mean to be mean. And of course, he told Kirk.
Oh, yeah.
And I went, oh, shit, I should have just said nothing, But, I mean, it was true. Metallica doesn't put a lot of bass. It comes from their guitars and the kick drum.
Yeah, and well, again, I mean, they lost their best bass player, Cliff Burton.
Right, Cliff, driving that accent to Sweden, right?
Yeah. But
that was horrible, that was horrible.
Yeah. Well, my story is I remember getting a call from Lars, and, he and Mike Klink were arguing because this is before everything was on a computer and you just push a button, it makes it perfect. And, Lars wanted to record every single drum hit on each take.
Isolated.
And the cymbals. And Mike Klink was like, I've never done anything like this before. It's going to take us 6 months to do the drums on Enter Sandman or something.
And then it's not real anyway.
Yeah. But I said to Lars, and I said, so explain to me why you can't just keep playing till you get a great take. Why do you have to overdub each hit? He goes, Tom, let me tell you something. On the drum head, there's a spot, and I have to hit that precise spot to get the maximum sound for that drum hit. And I said, well, what about the cymbals? He goes, it's the same thing. So,
wow.
I mean, I got to hand it to Lars. I mean, Enter Sandman is one of the most classic rock songs ever made, but it was done one drum hit, one cymbal hit at a time.
They spent years on that. They were playing the Troubadour, and Cliff Bernstein was our manager, and I picked him up at the Marquee and drove him to the Troubadour to see Metallica. He was thinking about, before he had signed him, he was thinking about signing him. And I have to be honest, I saw him and I said, you're going to sign these guys? I go, they're good, but, at that time it was Aerosmith and Loverboy, and, it was more hard rock. And these guys came out like a machine gun firing, they were just in your face, over the top. I think they still had the guy that ended up leaving, the guitar player, I can't remember his name, the blonde, Megadeth.
Dave Mustaine.
Dave Mustaine.
Yeah. And
I said to Cliff, I said, really, you're really into, at that time he had like Dokken and, just melodic rock.
Yeah.
And he says, and I'll never forget, he goes, these guys are going to be huge.
About Metallica.
Yeah. He goes, they're going to be huge. And fast forward 10 years, this is way before Black Album. He saw it, and that was it. And then they got signed. You signed them, and now they're probably the biggest band in the world.
I know, and you heard Don. He knows I signed Metallica. There's always this controversy. with Michael Alago, but I was leaving Elektra, so I turned the band over to Michael Alago, and it's kind of a complicated story, and I won't get into all that right now. But Maddie wants to know, and you know what? I can't remember how we got hooked up on Nightmare on Elm Street for In My Dream. How do we do that?
I don't remember. I remember Cliff said, "Hey, they're doing Nightmare on Elm Street." I said, "Oh yeah, I saw the first couple."
Yeah.
And I guess apparently that was Wes Craven or one of those directors was a fan of Dokken.
Yeah.
And that's the first song I ever wrote that they said, but the chorus has to have the words Dream Warriors in it.
Yeah.
I'm not used to somebody tell me what the chorus has to be. So the band wanted to do their version.
Right.
And I did my version, and we just both submitted them, and I got outvoted. So I wrote a version of Dream Warriors, but it was up-tempo. It was like, Dream Warriors, we can be heroes inside of our dreams. So, I still have a copy of it.
Yeah, so get this. So you're saying that the band did a version of it, and you had an alternate version.
Yeah, by myself.
You gave them both to Wes Craven, and he picked the band version.
Right. Well, they kind of nudged it on him.
Okay, so
that's
kind of interesting, you know, how that goes, you know? Like, the band's named after you, but, you know, you don't always win, you know? Like, everybody gets a say, you know? That's what bands are about.
It was a four-way split on everything. It didn't matter who wrote what. A lot of these, you know, bands, if you write the song like Bon Jovi or something, he keeps the publishing. But my deal I made with George and Jeff and Mick was for every dollar we generate, I'll get a quarter. After all the manager commitments.
And by the way, that's pretty generous, you know, because some bands, you know, the main person tries to keep everything, you know, and they don't share, you know, and that's a pretty cool thing.
Well, think about it. 75% I gave up.
Yeah.
That's millions of dollars. Yeah. Millions.
Heck yeah. And when you did that renegotiation a couple of years ago, you gave up a bunch too, right?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I think there was a lot of zeros.
Yeah.
Well, we better close this down.
Yeah, you guys got your someone wanted a quick story on Dream Warriors. We gave it to them. Don, you have one of the greatest voices in heavy metal. And someone wants to know, at what age did you write your first song with lyrics and vocal melodies? How old were you?
I think the first song, honestly, I wrote in a studio. It was a little 4-track talking about low tech. Was Alone Again in 1978, a year before I went to my first Germany tour. And I wrote Alone Again, and Bobby Blotzer went on to play with Rat. He played the drums on it, and Jeff Tappan was my bass player, and he played the bass. And I wrote Alone Again, and it ended up on a cassette in a closet.
Yeah.
And then you worried about it.
Yeah. So let's talk about this. This is a really funny thing. So there was this period in Dokken, you know, I'd signed the band, you were working on stuff, and like you guys in Rat, because you knew Bobby Blotzer, and Juan Crucier was like going to go to Rat, and
he was playing with me, and
and like you guys were sharing. Like there was a couple of weeks where Warren DeMartini replaced George Lynch, and George Lynch was in Rat, and Blotzer and Mick Brown were swapping around, and you know
it was very incestuous.
Yeah, between Rat and Dokken, and then Nikki Sixx was living with Robin Crosby, and I was going to sign Rat. I would have had Rat and Dokken and Motley Crue, and Nikki Sixx called me and said, "Tom, please don't sign Rat because Robin's my roommate, and if Rat became more successful than Motley Crue, I couldn't live with that." And so I took Rat across the street to Kenny Austin at Atlantic, and it was the only hit he ever signed, and I regretted that. But, you know, I respected, and, you know, Don, if you'd asked me you would never ask me to do something like that, but if you would have, you know, I would have respected that, and I would have...
It's interesting, because Rat, you know, was Electra at the 5th floor, and then the floor down was Atlantic.
Yeah.
And that was Rat, and... it was very incestuous, and then Warren actually played with us at the Whiskey, and we were doing a showcase.
I remember
George was this close to getting the gig in Aussie, and they flew him to England, remember? And then he came back, and all of a sudden we're on stage, the whiskey, and I look at the audience, and there's George. And I went like this, hey, George. And I was like, what's he doing here? And Warren was playing. So it was a lot of incestuous everything going around, and it's really weird. But that was that Hollywood scene, and people don't realize that a lot of these bands came from the South Bay, like me. I mean, Mick Mars lived 3 blocks from me. So and Rat, we all lived in the South Bay. Anyway, we got to go.
I remember, I remember going like to your house and like blocks. All these people were there. It was like 80s hair metal before 80s hair metal was even invented. Oh, they were all rocking at Dokken's house.
Yep. They said Don always has the best parties, and everybody had big hair. The place smelled like Aquanet.
Yeah.
There was chicks trolling around, and that's the way it rolled, man.
Yeah, man. If we could only like go back to that era and live it again, right?
If we could have filmed it, you know. I actually did have a film of one of my parties when I lived at the Hobbit House in Culver City, and it's probably a good thing that disappeared, because at the end of the video, my girlfriend saw the end of it, and that didn't go over very well.
Yeah, well, there you go, guys. Yeah. Well, listen, we're going to have to conclude because, Don, you got to get ready to hop up on stage here in a minute, don't you?
Yep. I got to go down and say hello to the boys. I didn't see them since I got here.
No kid. Well, you saw them last night for a late dinner.
Yeah, for a late dinner, but that was it. You know, we didn't talk about anything. We were all tired.
Yeah, so...
it's hard when you got a band that lives on the East Coast of Connecticut, and then John lives in California. I'm in New Mexico, but I think I'm going to go back to California. And it's crazy, you know.
Yeah, it is. So, guys, if you're in Vegas, come to the show tonight. It's good to see you again, Don, as always.
Without you,
shake with this hand. What?
I can shake with my paralyzed hand now. Take care.
Don, tell everybody who discovered Dokken. Let's get this straight.
Well, Tom Zutaut. Everybody knows that.
Just
like Lago said, he's discovered Metallica, but you did. So it's old news.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining.